Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. It's nice having you here. And today we are going to be looking at accountability, the grassroots approach. So before we delve in, I just want to have a quick icebreaker with the team. If you could just put up the first slide. Okay, that's the topic, accountability. Yeah. So if age is only a state of mind, what is your state of mind right now? So you could just click the Slido tab and fill in your comments. You could either choose to be a cheeky child, tormented teenager, mad midlifer, or groovy grandparent. Do we have the Slido running?
People are posting in the chat at the moment, Seth, but we will get the Slido running as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing a lot of mad midlifers in the chat. And we should be pulling the results now from the Slido.
The Slido results should just be coming up, Seth.
Okay, thank you, Russell.
There you go.
Aha, so we have 54% of the participants as 58 mad midlifers, then we have tormented teenagers and cheeky child, and we still have 8% groovy grandparents. Okay, so the mad midlifer stage is a good stage. Actually, it's a time where you make a lot of decisions, some positive, some negative, but when guided right, you're able to make the right decisions. So I think we're in the right place. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we'll take another Slido, and this time around, we would be asking the question. Imagine you're planning for a big event in your life. It could be your wedding, childbirth, decorating a new house, a birthday, etc. Now imagine being cut off completely from all the decisions and plans for the event day. How will you feel? So just put it in the Slido. You could use between 1 to 3 words, not more than 3. We just have about a minute or two. Yeah. Oh, great. I'm seeing a lot of responses. Russell, we could continue receiving the responses. We'll just keep it in the parking lot. We'll come back to the results later. So we could actually go to the next slide. Thank you. So in this session, our objectives are going to be understanding what accountability is, and what it is not, and then why accountability to affected population and why it is important for communities to champion downward accountability. Now we're looking at the key factors of an effective accountability system and key challenges with program implementation linked to poor accountability practices. And we are also going to be sharing a model for an inclusive community-led monitoring that will help to encourage good accountability to affected population. Let's go to the next slide, please. So when you hear the word accountability, what word or words comes to your mind? Yep, there's another Slido. We could just vote in. Accountability, what comes to your mind? Okay, power, trust, respect, act, respect, power, trust, responsibility, transparency, fairness, feedback, sharing, dignity, agreement, confidentiality, agreement, trust, power, respect are the three words that are the most thought of. Responsibility, power, trust, respect. So we see all these words actually come to mind, and the key things that pop up are respect, power, responsibility, and trust. Now we're all right in the way we speak because when we talk about accountability, power is involved because until you've been entrusted with a thing, then you're not requested to be accountable for it. Now there's respect, there's trust. Now, but for the sake of this session, I am going to give us the definition of accountability as I think it should be. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, say accountability is being responsible for what you do and able to give a satisfactory reason for it. Now, it implies a willingness. It talks about transparency and allowing others to evaluate one's performance. So many a times we see accountability as just a process of being responsible for your actions or your behavior. But in essence, accountability also deals with the moral responsibilities that come from the process of keeping your promise. So it's one thing to make a promise, it's another thing to keep the promise, but the process of keeping the promise is also very, very important. And that is a part where a lot of us miss out on. So because if you're accountable, there are moral responsibilities that might not be part of the checklist that you're supposed to check in saying, yes, I am accountable or no, I am not accountable. So a lot of times you find out that people are just interested in the checklist and not so much interested in the process, the responsibilities that come with the process. Now, let me give us a practical example. Let's say you commit to building a borehole in a community. You said, okay, we are going to provide you with tap water or borehole water. And as far as you're concerned, being accountable is providing water for the populace. And that's what is on your big accountability checklist. So when you come in and you drill a borehole and water flushes out, it's a check. We have been accountable and we have delivered. But in the process of being accountable, there are responsibilities, moral responsibilities that come into play. So you need to ask yourself, this water I am providing, is it safe for drinking? Does it meet the minimum standards? Now, these things might not be explicitly written. These things might not be explicitly written in your accountability checklist, but they are the moral responsibilities that accompany the process of you fulfilling your responsibilities, and they are very, very important. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we say accountability is not just about what you do, but it's also about what you do not do. So you might be held accountable because of a certain thing you have done, but you could also be held accountable for not doing a particular thing. In the example we shared earlier, you find out that you made the borehole, you provided water, but we wouldn't say you are accountable to the population because the water was not safe. You missed out on your moral responsibilities in the process of just checking the box of accountability. Next slide, please. Now, accountability to the affected population. Why is it important that communities should champion this process? Now, let's go back to the quiz. Could you please help us share the result of the last quiz we did? The second Slido quiz, where we had how people would feel for the great event. Hello, Bruce.
Hi, Seth. Can you hear me?
Yes. Could we please have the results of the second Slido test up?
Yes, I can bring them up for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, great. So when we ask the question, how you would feel when you are actually preparing for a grand event, and then you were cut off completely from the decisions and plans for the decision, majority of the people said sad and mad. Now, this is us preparing for our things, but then you find out that a lot of times we're implementing projects and we are saying that this project is community centered. This project is supposed to be for the people, but then the people are being cut off from every decision that has to be made as regards that particular project that is said to belong to the community. Now, if you are feeling sad, mad, bad, try to picture how the community people feel. So a lot of times we do a lot of projects and we come up with these great and exciting and awesome ideas, but we never sit down with the people that are supposed to benefit from these. And then at the end of the day, you are wondering, why does it look like people don't appreciate the effort? Why does it look like we are just here and everybody is wanting us to leave? It is because it is a major event for the people, but the people have been sidelined through the whole process. So it's very, very important that in accountability, especially downward accountability, the people should be in charge of the accountability processes. Now, basically, we know that we have two types of accountability, the upward accountability and the downward accountability. Now, the upward, we're talking about accountability to donor, and then the downward is accountability to the affected population. Now, think about it. If we are not accountable to the population, then the people are feeling mad and sad. We are accountable to our donors. We check the list and the donor is happy, but the people are not happy about it. Now it brings about a problem. Now, if we are talking about accountability, imagine yourself having a personal assistant, and then that personal assistant is being rated by another person. So the personal assistant works for you, but then another person decides whether your PA is accountable or not. It doesn't make sense. So it is also with our programming. When you are talking about accountability to the affected population, the affected population should decide how you should be accountable to them. It shouldn't be the other way around. I shouldn't come and tell you, okay, I'm going to do this for you, and this is how I am going to show you that I am accountable. It doesn't say anything. But if we have programs and we have the people that the programs is designed for, saying, okay, since you say you're going to do A, B, C, these are the things we are going to put in place to ensure that you are accountable to us. Now, that is what makes sense. That is having the people in the community, in the grassroots, deciding how accountability should be. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, it is important for communities to champion accountability because it brings about sustainability and community ownership of programs. Now, one of the key things we find out in all our programmings is that we have issues around sustainability and community ownership. And that is why you go in and do an awesome program. And once you pull out in a month or two, you find out that the whole thing disappears. It's as if you were never there. And then you're thinking, is it that the people never appreciated this work or what? Now, the truth is that they didn't feel like they owned the project. But when you have the community at the center of the accountability structure, then there is ownership. And where there's ownership, there is sustainability. It also builds resilience and helps avoid dependency. When you have the community at the center, you find out that the resilience of the community is being built because the community is also imputing into the process, and it also helps to avoid dependency. So that when the actor pulls out of the location, you find out that the people are able to stand on their own. Now, the needs belong to the community. So they should be the ones to decide how you should be accountable. Also, we need to understand that when we're talking about downward accountability, it feeds into upward accountability. Now, when you're accountable to the affected population, somehow, almost all the time, you find out that the checkboxes for your upward accountability, it has been ticked. But if you stick to upward accountability and ignore downward accountability, almost all the time, you find out that you are having issues at the community level. Let's go to the next slide, please. What are the key factors of an effective accountability system? First, there has to be consistent learning. There has to be, that is, review performance, identify challenges, come up with innovations to tackle these challenges and apply them. Now, accountability is a continuous circle that when broken, the system becomes ineffective. For you to be accountable and there to be an effective accountability system, there has to be continuous learning. Each day you have to go back to the field. You have to review your performance. What have I done well? What haven't I done well? What were the challenges? How do we come up with innovations? How do we tackle these challenges? And how do we apply these innovations? Then when you go back to the field and apply these innovations, you go back again after a while to still review your performance and do the whole process again. Now, taking of responsibility and avoidance of blame is another key factor of an effective accountability system. We find out that we have a lot of blame game going on in the system, in the humanitarian and the development world. You find out that people are more interested in who did what was wrong and not how do we fix it. So, but in order to have an effective accountability system, we need to take responsibility and work on resolving and fixing future occurrences rather than having blame games. To have an effective accountability system, there must be timely information sharing as well. It's one thing to share information, it's another thing to share information at a timely, or should I say timely. Very, very important. Because when you don't give information timely, then the information becomes irrelevant. There should be constant and effective communication and feedback systems. When you don't have effective and constant communication and feedback systems, then you never can tell how effective your accountability system is. There must be steady communication with the people you are being accountable to. You have to also look out for your moral responsibilities. Let's not be so much interested in just ticking the boxes. Oh, yes, I did this. Did you do A? Yes, tick. Did you do B? Yes, tick. And then you forget about the moral responsibility that comes with the process. The final point, which is also very important, is the use and the build on elementary structures. So when we're talking about elementary structures, what do we mean? Basically, elementary structures are those structures that have already been existing in the communities where we work. Now, in these communities where we are working, you find that they already, most of the time, have an accountability system. Now, you find out that in every community you go to, it is very important for you to understand how the systems have been operating before you came in. And then you make use of these accountability systems and build on it and make innovations to fit what you are bringing in. If you don't make use of elementary structures, you might end up bringing foreign things that are not really compatible with the culture and the traditions of the people. But these things actually come in and people think they are foreign, and so they don't buy into it. So it's important to ensure that we build on elementary structures when working on accountability. Let's go to the next slide, please. We're talking about key challenges that come up as a result of poor accountability practices. We have lack of trust, no sustainability, no continuity, and it eventually leads to loss of funding. So a lot of times we are more concerned about protecting our funding that we forget who we really are there to serve. We forget who we really are there to work for and which is the affected community. So it's very, very important that we should stick to making the affected population the center of everything that we are going to do as regards to do with accountability. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, the COBAPS model is a model actually that was designed by Jarido Foundation here in Nigeria. And it's a system of accountability that is built on an elementary structure like I have spoken about earlier. Now, in most of the communities where we implement here in Nigeria, we discover that there is an elementary structure that is known as the town hall model. So basically, in those communities, when it comes to accountability, people are very interested in sitting in a town hall meeting to address issues. And so we decided to build on this model to come about with the COBAPS model. It's basically community-based accountability and feedback system model. Now, firstly, it has to do with two things. One is a physical file depository where files as to what you intend to do in the community and how you intend to carry them out after discussions with the community are filed. This is domiciled in the community and within the community and is open to access by community stakeholders. The second thing is actually having a committee that is made up of community stakeholders from different sectors of the community: men, women, boys, girls, persons with disability, pregnant and lactating women, coming together to form this committee. Now, these persons have kind of a town hall approach. and it is used to evaluate the work of the organization. So once in a month, a town hall meeting is called, and then the organization comes in, and there's this big board that we call an accountability board, whereby all the accountability milestones are listed. So this committee now comes to sit down and say, okay, did you meet this accountability criteria? Yes. What about the moral responsibilities that were required of you in the process? Did you meet them? So they are not only checking the box, but they are also checking the quality of the implementation, which is very, very important. Now, we could actually share this more. We have a more elaborate model design that the organization is willing to share for people who want to try this system out. For the sake of our time, I cannot go so deep into it. But basically, if we want to be accountable, then our accountability has to be centered around the very people that we claim to be accountable to. And these people should be able to decide how to measure our accountability. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. I would give this time for questions if there are a few questions that we want to ask.
Thanks, Seth. Just so you know, for the chat, if you want to post any questions to Seth, please put them in the chat box on the right-hand side. And Seth, just letting you know, we only have about 3 or 4 minutes for questions.
Yes. Yes, so where do you find more information about the COBAFS model? You could actually just write an email. I will drop my email in the chat box, and then we could actually share this model. Okay, Nirengi, I don't think that was part of my presentation. Sorry. The COBAFS model. So I have dropped the email in the chat box. You could take it and then we could share emails. Next slide, please, Rosal. I don't see more questions. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and thank you for being part of this session.